If someone had told me that the most painful sound in my marriage would not be shouting, not arguments, not even silence, but a slap, I would have never believed them. Because slaps are loud, they leave marks, they end things. But this one did something worse. It erased me. My name is Anika Sharma, and the day my marriage truly died, it happened in my husband's family home in Jaipur, right in front of everyone who was supposed to protect me. My mother in law looked at me with eyes full of disgust, raised her hand, and slapped me so hard that the room froze. Then she said something I will never forget. A woman who cannot give birth has no right to stay in this house. For a moment, I could not hear anything, not my own breathing, not the ceiling fan, not even my heart. I stood there, touching my burning cheek, while my husband, the man I married for love, stood just a few steps away, silent. No one defended me. No one spoke. Because in that house, my mother in law's words were law, and she had just passed her judgment. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. My marriage had already been decided, without my consent, without my voice, without my worth. You see, in our society, a woman is measured by one thing before anything else. Not her kindness, not her loyalty, not her sacrifices, but whether she can give birth. And because I had not become a mother yet, I had become a burden, a curse, a mistake they wanted to erase. What I did not know was this. Within a few days, the same woman who humiliated me, who planned to replace me, who called me unlucky, would be forced to stand completely silent because the truth she tried to destroy me with was about to turn against her. If you want to know what happened next, if you want to see how a woman everyone called useless became the center of a truth that shocked an entire family, comment number 1 right now and watch till the end. Because this story is not just about pain, it is about justice. The Sharma house was not just a home, it was a statement. A large bungalow in one of the most respected areas of Jaipur. High gates, marble floors, quiet corridors that smelled of incense and discipline. From the outside, it looked like a perfect Indian family. Inside, it was ruled by one person, my mother-in-law, Savitri Devi. In that house, there were many rooms, many servants, many relatives who came and went, but there was only one voice that mattered, hers. Savitri Devi believed in traditions, in family name, in what society says. Every morning, the house woke up on her schedule. Every festival was celebrated her way. Every decision passed through her hands, and everyone followed, without questions, including my husband. Rajiv was a good man, kind, educated, hardworking, but he had grown up believing one thing: a mother's word is God's word. So even when he loved me, even when he saw my pain, he learned to stay quiet. Because silence was safer than disobedience. I entered this house as a bride with hope in my heart. I believed love would be enough, that respect would grow with time. I was wrong. Very soon, I understood my place. I was not introduced as Anika. I was introduced as the daughter in law from a simple family. My education did not matter. My efforts did not matter. My sleepless nights did not matter. Only one question mattered. When will you give us good news? At first, it was asked softly, with smiles, with blessings. Then it became sharper, more frequent, more uncomfortable. Relatives would visit and whisper. Neighbors would ask with fake concern. Even servants started watching me differently, as if my body was a public matter. In that house, there was an unspoken rule. A woman earns her place only after becoming a mother. Until then, she is temporary, replaceable. I noticed it in small things. The way my room was kept separate. The way my opinions were ignored. The way my mother-in-law would sigh whenever she looked at me. Once, when I tried to help in a family discussion, Savitri Devi said calmly, "This is not something you need to think about." Another time, when I asked if we could visit my parents, she replied, "Your real family is here now. Learn that first." Slowly, I stopped speaking. I learned when to lower my eyes, when to stay quiet, when to disappear. Because in that house, peace was not about happiness, it was about obedience. And I did not yet realize that for Savitri Devi, I was not a daughter in law waiting to be loved. I was a test. And in her eyes, I was already failing. In that house, pressure did not come all at once. It arrived slowly, quietly, like poison mixed into everyday life. At first, everyone pretended to care. My mother-in-law would place her hand on my head during morning prayers and say, "May God bless you with good news soon." Relatives smiled and added, "It will happen, do not worry." I smiled back. I nodded. I believed them. Because when you are newly married, you want to believe that kindness is real. But weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. The smiles changed. The blessings became reminders. The reminders became questions, and the questions became accusations. Every festival became a test. During Karva Chauth, women would sit together, laughing, sharing stories about their children. I sat quietly, holding my sieve, pretending not to hear. Someone would always ask, "So Anika, any good news yet?" Another voice would quickly follow, "Arey, she is still young, but time flies, you know." Time flies. That sentence haunted me because no one asked how time felt inside my body, inside my mind. Every doctor visit felt like standing in court. Reports were discussed openly. Advice was given loudly. Change your diet. Stop working so much. Relax your mind. As if my sadness was a choice. As if my silence was the reason. Slowly, I stopped looking at myself in the mirror. I started counting days, symptoms, signs. Every late period brought hope. Every normal report crushed it. At night, I would lie beside Rajiv, staring at the ceiling. He would turn to me and whisper, "Do not take tension. Everything will be fine." I wanted to believe him, but his words felt small compared to the noise outside our room. Because during the day, his mother would say things like, "A woman's real duty starts after motherhood." Once, when she thought I could not hear, she told a relative, "If this continues, we will have to think of other options." Other options. Those words broke something inside me. I began to feel ashamed of my own body, ashamed of my breath, ashamed of waking up every morning without good news. I avoided phone calls from my parents. I did not want them to worry, or worse, to feel guilty, because deep down I had started blaming myself too. Maybe I was lacking. Maybe I was broken. Maybe I deserve this treatment. That is what constant pressure does. It does not shout, it whispers. Again and again. Until you start believing it. I laughed when people joked. I served tea with steady hands. I followed every rule. But inside, something was bleeding. Not physically, emotionally. Because when a woman is told every day that her worth depends on one thing, she slowly forgets that she has a heart. And by the time I realized how deeply wounded I was, I had already learned one dangerous habit: enduring pain in silence, not knowing that very soon that silence would be shattered by a truth no one in that house was ready to face. The warning did not come in anger. It came calmly, quietly, like a knife placed on the table, not yet lifted. One evening after dinner, my mother-in-law called me to the living room. The television was on. The servants were still moving around. Life looked normal. But her voice was not. She looked at me the way people look at a problem they want solved. Then she said, "Anika, how long do you think a family can wait?" I stood there with my hands folded, my eyes lowered. She continued, "Our relatives are asking questions. Neighbors are talking. Our name is being discussed." I felt my chest tighten. Then she said the sentence that changed everything. "If you cannot give us a child soon, we will have to think about Rajiv's future." I looked up, confused. "Future?" She nodded slowly, as if explaining something obvious. A man should not suffer because of a woman's weakness. Weakness. That word pierced deeper than any insult before. Rajiv was sitting on the sofa, silent, his jaw tight. I wanted him to speak, to say something, anything, but my mother-in-law did not stop. There are many good girls from respected families. Girls who understand responsibility. Girls who can give heirs. She paused, letting every word sink in. "I can arrange a second marriage if needed." The room went cold. I felt my legs weaken. My heart started pounding so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. I whispered, "Mother, please do not say this." She looked at me sharply. "Why not?" "It is practical. It is necessary." Rajiv finally stood up. "Ma, this is not right. Anika is my wife." She turned to him, her voice still calm. "Love does not run families. Children do." Then she looked back at me. "If you have any self-respect, you will not stop what needs to be done." That night, I could not sleep. Every shadow in the room felt heavier. Every sound felt sharper. I kept hearing her words again and again. Second marriage, other options, future. I lay awake beside Rajiv. He held my hand tightly. I will not let this happen, he said softly. But his voice sounded uncertain, even to himself. Because in that house, threats did not need to be loud. They were real precisely because they were spoken without emotion. And that was when I understood. I was no longer a daughter in law waiting for patience. I was a problem they were preparing to replace. And once that thought entered my mind, fear stopped being a feeling. It became my reality. She arrived the very next afternoon, not quietly, not by coincidence. A white luxury car stopped right in front of the Sharma house. The kind of car that makes servants pause and neighbors peek from their balconies. I was standing near the staircase when I heard the sound of heels, slow, confident, unafraid. Then I saw her, Kavya Malhotra. She stepped inside like the house already belonged to her. Perfect hair, expensive perfume, a smile that did not reach her eyes. My mother-in-law's face changed the moment she saw her. The cold, sharp woman disappeared. In her place stood someone warm, proud, almost excited. Kavya beta, you came so quickly, she said, holding her hands. Kavya smiled sweetly. Of course, auntie, you said it was important. I stood frozen, invisible. No one introduced me. No one looked my way. Kavya's eyes moved around the room slowly. Then they stopped on me. Oh, she said softly. You are still here? It was not a question, it was a statement. I thought you would have gone back to your parents' house by now. The servants lowered their eyes. They understood exactly what was happening. My mother-in-law did not correct her. She did not defend me. She only said, some things take time. Time. Kavya walked closer, her bangles making a soft sound. She looked at me with a smile that felt like a warning. I have heard so much about this family, she said. So much responsibility. So much legacy. Then she turned to my mother-in-law. You deserve a daughter-in-law who understands that. Rajiv entered the room at that moment. He stopped the second he saw her. Kavya? He asked. She turned surprised. Rajiv? I did not know you were at home. My mother-in-law answered for her. I invited her. Rajiv looked at me, then at his mother. Why? She replied calmly. Because families need solutions, not delays. That was when I understood. Kavya was not a guest. She was not a visitor. She was an option. A replacement prepared carefully, presented politely, and brought into my home while I was still standing inside it. And if you are watching this and feeling this pain, if you understand what it feels like to be slowly pushed out of your own life, stay with me. Because what happens next will change everything. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The room felt smaller, heavier. Kavya stood confidently near my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law stood straight, as if she had already won. And I stood there, holding my breath, waiting to see if my husband would disappear again. Rajiv looked at Kavya. Then he looked at his mother. Then his eyes finally came to me. Something in his face changed. Not anger, not fear. Decision. He walked past Kavya without looking at her. He came straight to me and stood beside me, close enough that I could feel his shoulder touch mine. My wife is Anika, he said. His voice was calm but it was firm. The room froze. My mother in law frowned. Rajiv, think before you speak. He did not move. He did not raise his voice. I have thought enough, he replied, and I am speaking now. Kavya laughed softly. It was meant to sound light. Rajiv, you are emotional. Everyone wants what is best for you. He turned to her for the first time. This is my home, he said, and this is my marriage. You do not get a say. Kavya's smile slipped. My mother in law stepped forward. Her voice was sharp now. Do you know what people are saying about us? Do you know what this looks like? Rajiv nodded slowly. I know what it looks like to her, he said, pointing gently towards me. It looks like humiliation. It looks like fear. It looks like being treated as replaceable. I felt my eyes fill with tears. He continued, I will not allow that. My mother in law stared at him as if she was seeing a stranger. So you will choose her over your own mother? She asked. Rajiv did not hesitate. I am choosing my wife over injustice. Silence fell again. The servants had stopped moving. Even the clock on the wall felt loud. My mother in law's voice dropped, cold, controlled. Be careful, Rajiv. This house runs on rules. Rajiv took my hand. Then he said something no one expected. If these rules hurt my wife, then I will break them. My heart pounded. He turned to me and said softly, You are not alone. I am here. In that moment, the fear that had lived inside me for years cracked. Not because everything was suddenly safe, but because for the first time, someone stood beside me and said out loud that I mattered. And my mother in law realized something dangerous. Her silence no longer controlled my husband, and that scared her more than anything else. Dinner that night was not a meal, it was a stage. The dining table was long and heavy, polished until it reflected the chandelier above. Silver plates, perfectly arranged dishes. Everything looked rich, controlled, respectable. Except me. I sat at the far end of the table, quiet, careful, trying to take as little space as possible. Kavya sat near my mother-in-law, laughing softly, complimenting the food, looking completely at home. My mother-in-law watched her with satisfaction. This is how a daughter-in-law should sit, she said, confident, presentable. I lowered my eyes. Food was served, one dish after another, but no one asked if I wanted anything. Then Kavya looked around and smiled. Auntie, she said casually, is there no sweet today? I remember you always make something special. My mother-in-law turned towards me immediately. You heard her, she said. Go to the kitchen and prepare something. Do not sit like this doing nothing. I stood up slowly. My hands were trembling. I had barely eaten all day. My body felt weak. I walked into the kitchen. The heat hit my face. The smell of boiling milk made my stomach turn. As I reached for the pot, my elbow slipped. The milk spilled. Hot, sudden, it splashed onto the floor. The sound echoed through the house. Before I could react, my mother-in-law slammed her hand on the table. I knew it, she shouted. Girls from unlucky homes bring only destruction. Everyone turned to look at me. Kavya stood up. Her voice was soft but sharp. Auntie, this is dangerous. A woman who cannot even carry a child properly, how will she handle a house? Her words cut deeper than the heat on my skin. She should apologize, Kavya added. At least show some shame. The entire dining room waited. I felt small, exposed, as if the floor beneath me had disappeared. Then Rajiv pushed his chair back and stood up. Enough, he said. His voice was firm, louder than before. He walked straight to me and held my hand. She will not apologize, he said. It was an accident, and she is exhausted. My mother-in-law stared at him. You are embarrassing us in front of guests, she said. Rajiv did not let go of my hand. No, he replied. What is embarrassing is treating a human being like this. Kavya laughed nervously. Rajiv, you are overreacting. He turned to her. Stop, he said. This does not concern you. The room was silent again. I could feel my heart racing. My palms were cold. My mother-in-law's face hardened. If you continue like this, she said slowly, you will force me to take stronger decisions. Rajiv looked straight at her. Then make them, he said. But do not expect me to sacrifice my wife's dignity. That was the moment everything shifted. This was no longer about food or manners or guests. It was about power. And for the first time, my mother-in-law realized that control was slipping out of her hands. As for me, standing there with my husband beside me, I knew one thing clearly. This dinner had changed our lives, and the worst was still waiting. That night, the house went quiet early. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels heavy, as if the walls themselves are listening. I went to our room without saying much. My body was tired, but my mind refused to rest. Every word from the dinner table kept replaying in my head. Every look, every insult. Rajiv followed me a few minutes later. He closed the door gently behind him. Are you okay? He asked. I nodded, even though it was not true. I do not want more problems, I said softly. I do not want you to fight with your mother because of me. He sat beside me. His voice was calm but tired. This is not because of you, he said. This is because something is wrong. I wanted to believe him, but before I could say anything else, we heard footsteps in the corridor. Slow, deliberate. Then a knock. Not asking for permission, just announcing presence. The door opened. My mother-in-law stood there. She did not look angry. She looked decided. In her hand, she was holding an envelope. She walked into the room without waiting, stopped in front of us, and placed the envelope on the bed. Raji frowned. What is this? She answered without hesitation. Engagement papers. The word echoed in my ears. Engagement? Rajiv repeated. Whose engagement? She looked straight at me. Yours, she said, and Kavya's. I felt something collapse inside my chest. Rajiv stood up immediately. Have you lost your mind? He asked. This is my wife. My mother-in-law did not raise her voice. A man's duty is bigger than emotions, she said. This family needs stability. It needs heirs. Then she turned to me again. If you have dignity, you will leave this house on your own. The room spun. I could not speak. I could not cry. I only felt a sharp pain rise slowly from my lower stomach. Rajiv moved between us. Stop, he said. You will not threaten her like this. She looked at him coldly. You are blinded by sympathy. If you do not act now, you will regret it later. Then she turned around and walked out. The door closed softly behind her. But the damage was done. I sank onto the bed, my hands shaking, my breath uneven. Rajiv knelt in front of me. I will not let this happen, he said again. But for the first time, I could see fear in his eyes too, because this was no longer a warning. It was a declaration of war. And somewhere deep inside my body, that quiet pain continued to grow, unnoticed, waiting to change everything. The knock came early the next morning, too early. I had barely slept. My body felt heavy. The dull pain in my lower stomach had not gone away. I thought it was stress, fear, another night of crying quietly into my pillow. I slowly opened my eyes when I heard voices in the corridor. Not angry, not sharp, concerned. Rajiv stood up from the chair near the window and walked to the door. When he opened it, a woman in a white coat stood there. She carried a small medical bag. Her face was calm. Good morning, she said. I am Dr. Mehta. I froze. A doctor? Rajiv stepped aside. Please come in. She looked at me gently. Your husband called me. He said you were not well. My heart started racing. I'm fine, I said quickly. I do not need a doctor. But even as I said it, my voice trembled. Dr. Mehta smiled softly. Many women say that. But the body speaks even when we stay silent. Before I could reply, my mother-in-law appeared at the door. Her face was unreadable. Check her quickly, she said. If she falls sick, it will create more problems in the house. The words were cold. But for the first time, I noticed something else. Unease. Dr. Mehta nodded and asked everyone to step outside. The room felt very quiet as she began examining me. I stared at the ceiling, counting my breaths. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, she stopped. She looked at me carefully. Have you been under a lot of stress? She asked. I laughed softly. A tired laugh. She took a deep breath. That explains part of it, she said, but not everything. My hands tightened on the bedsheet. Then she said it. You are pregnant. The world stopped. I stared at her, unable to speak. Pregnant? I whispered. That is not possible. She smiled gently. It is possible. And it has already happened? Tears filled my eyes, fear and hope crashing together. But there is more, she added. My heart pounded. It is still early, she said, but there are signs that this pregnancy is not singular. The door opened suddenly. Rajiv stood there, his face pale. What did you say? He asked. Dr. Mehta turned to him. Your wife is pregnant. Rajiv covered his mouth. His eyes filled instantly. Outside, I could hear footsteps, whispers. My mother in law's voice cut through the air. What is going on in there? Dr. Mehta opened the door and spoke clearly. She is expecting. Silence followed. A heavy silence. And in that silence, I realized something. The truth had begun its journey, and nothing in that house would ever be the same again. For a few minutes, no one said anything. The news hung in the air, heavy and fragile at the same time. Pregnant, a word I had dreamed of for years. A word that should have brought only happiness. But in that house, nothing came without a price. My mother in law was the first to speak. How sure are you? She asked coldly. Doctors make mistakes. Dr. Mehta did not flinch. The signs are clear. But she is physically weak. That part was ignored. My mother in law crossed her arms. We cannot celebrate on assumptions. Rajiv stepped forward. Ma, the doctor has confirmed it. She looked at him sharply. Confirmed is not enough. Then she turned to the doctor. I want another opinion at a bigger clinic with proper reports. Dr. Mehta nodded slowly. That is your right. But I must warn you. Everyone looked at her. Anika is under severe stress. Her body is exhausted. If this continues, the pregnancy could be at risk. My heart sank. Rajiv immediately turned to me. Did you hear that? You need rest. But my mother in law's expression did not change. Women have been giving birth for centuries, she said. Weakness is not an excuse. I felt dizzy. The room seemed to tilt slightly. I held the edge of the bed, trying to steady myself. Dr. Mehta noticed. She needs care, she said firmly, not pressure. My mother in law sighed, as if patience was being wasted. Fine, she said. We will do the ultrasound. Then she looked straight at me. But understand this clearly. The room went silent again. If the reports show even the slightest doubt, if there is any inconsistency, you will leave this house yourself. Rajiv's voice rose. This is cruelty. She cut him off. This is clarity. Then she added the sentence that cut deepest. A weak pregnancy is not a blessing. It is a responsibility. And this family cannot afford uncertainty. I felt tears burn behind my eyes, but I did not let them fall. I placed my hand gently on my stomach. For the first time, I was afraid, not for myself, but for the life growing inside me. Dr. Mehta spoke again. Stress will harm her. If you truly care about this family, you must protect her now. My mother in law did not reply. She simply turned towards the door. We go tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. No delays. Then she paused without looking back. If this pregnancy is real, I will think again. Think again. Not accept, not apologize. Just think. The door closed behind her. Rajiv knelt in front of me. His eyes were full of fear and determination. I will not let them hurt you, he said. I promise. I wanted to believe him, but as I lay back on the bed, My body trembling, my stomach aching softly, I understood the truth. This was no longer just about proving I was pregnant. It was about surviving long enough to protect the life inside me. The hospital did not feel like a place of healing that morning. It felt like a courtroom. People moved around us. Nurses passed by. Machines beeped softly. But all I could hear was my own heartbeat, fast, uneven. My mother in law walked ahead of us, straight backed, silent. Her face showed no emotion. Kavya walked beside her, well dressed, confident, as if this visit was already a victory. Rajiv stayed close to me. His hand never left mine. "Do not worry," he whispered. "I am here." We were called inside the ultrasound room. The lights were bright, too bright. I lay down slowly. My body felt weak. My head felt light. The doctor adjusted the screen and began the scan. Her eyes focused, professional, careful. Minutes passed. No one spoke. Then the doctor leaned closer to the screen. Her eyebrows tightened slightly. My mother in law crossed her arms. "So?" she asked. "Speak clearly." The doctor took a breath. "The pregnancy is confirmed," she said, "and it is not a single pregnancy." The room froze. Rajiv's grip tightened. "What does that mean?" he asked. The doctor turned the screen slightly. "She is carrying twins." I felt tears spill from my eyes, uncontrolled, relief and fear mixing together. Rajiv covered his face. He laughed and cried at the same time. "Twins." Kavya stepped forward sharply. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Such things are sometimes misread." The doctor looked at her calmly. "The heartbeats are clear. There is no doubt." My mother in law walked closer to the screen. She stared at it, long, hard, as if trying to deny what her eyes were seeing. "Is her condition stable?" she asked finally. The doctor shook her head slightly. "She is physically weak. Her blood levels are low. Stress can be dangerous." Those words landed heavily. "This pregnancy needs protection," the doctor continued. "Rest, care, peace." The silence that followed was different. It was no longer doubtful. It was exposed. Outside the room, people had gathered. Whispers filled the corridor. Someone said quietly, "Did you hear?" "She's carrying twins," another voice added. "And they treated her like that?" My mother in law stood very still. For the first time, there was no anger on her face, only shock. This was no longer a private matter, no longer a family secret. The truth had come out in front of strangers who could not be silenced. And in that hospital corridor, without shouting, without insults, the judgment had been made. The ride back home was silent. No arguments, no lectures, no commands. My mother in law sat in the back seat, staring out of the window. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap. For the first time since I entered that house, she did not speak. Kavya tried once. "Auntie, people exaggerate in hospitals," she said softly. "You should not listen to strangers." My mother in law lifted her hand. "Enough," she said. Her voice was low, controlled, final. Kavya went quiet. Rajiv kept one hand on the steering wheel and one hand holding mine. I leaned back, exhausted. My body ached, but my heart felt strangely light. When they reached the house, no one rushed out. No servants watching. No neighbors peeking. Just silence. Rajiv took me straight to our room. He helped me lie down carefully. You need rest, he said. Everything else can wait. A few minutes later, the door opened. I expected anger, cold words, more conditions. But my mother in law stood there differently. Her shoulders were not as straight. Her eyes did not look sharp. She stood near the door for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Then she said, Anika, just my name, not daughter in law, not girl, not problem. Anika. I do not know how to speak softly, she continued. I have ruled this house with discipline for years. She paused. But today I was forced to look at myself. The room was quiet. I believed control was strength, she said. I believed fear kept families together. Her voice shook slightly. I was wrong. Rajiv looked at her, surprised. She turned to him. I raised you to be obedient, she said, but you stood for what was right. Then she looked back at me. You are carrying life inside you, she said, and you are weak because I made you weak. My breath caught. I cannot undo my words, she said, but I will not add more pain. She stepped closer. From today, your health comes first. No pressure, no threats. She did not say sorry, but she did something else. She placed her hand gently on my shoulder, not possessive, not commanding, protective. That touch broke something inside me. Tears rolled down my cheeks, silent, heavy. That night, for the first time in years, the light in my mother in law's room stayed off. And for the first time, I understood that change does not always come loudly. Sometimes it comes when pride finally gets tired. Weeks passed. My days became quieter. Doctor visits, rest, care. Kavya stopped visiting. No announcements were made, and my mother in law, the woman who once measured my worth with cruelty, now measured her words with care. One evening, as I sat by the window, my hand resting on my stomach, I felt something small, a flutter. I smiled because I knew one thing. The children growing inside me would never hear the words I once heard. And that, more than any apology, was the real victory.